Stop it.
Hey, welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in the final trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine. All right, so let's break this baby
Ryan,
down.
Do you mind if I join you?
Oh, Colton Ogburn, the guy who's trapped eternally in our television but doesn't know it, so please don't tell him. Yes, I would love for your help breaking down this trailer. Now, Colton and I were thinking about doing a reaction video, but we got too excited and we went ahead and watched the trailer without you guys. So we didn't want to fake it. So we're going to like actually just go through everything for you right now. So we've got the trailer queued up here. Colton, let's go through this shot by shot. All right, so first shot, Deadpool in a forest. Now, in past trailers, because we see him fighting these people who look like Hydra agents, we have thought that this was the forest from Age of Ultron, like we saw the TVA recruit Deadpool and earlier, in the first trailer. So I assumed that he was going through like different moments in the MCU. What do you think this is?
Well, I don't think those were Hydra agents. I think those are the TVA agents and like their SWAT gear that are pursuing
that would make
Deadpool.
way more sense. Yeah. Okay.
And
yeah,
I think this might actually be the same woods from Logan in the final, the third act of Logan. They're in those woods by the Canadian border, and we know that Deadpool seems to be going to look for a Wolverine. Like in the very first trailer that we got at the Super Bowl, we saw that he is going to be encountering other Wolverines besides the Wolverine that he finds in the bar, because we saw the Wolverine in like the white suit sitting like at the poker table.
Right.
So that kind of implies that maybe he's on a journey like to find different Wolverines. So maybe he shows up at this one in the Logan universe, which may be his universe, as we'll talk about here in a second. But maybe he's gonna find his grave, or I don't know.
And I think that they have said at press junkets that this movie is the same universe as Logan, that it does not negate his journey in Logan. So that tracks. Like this could be him going like too far into the future, because this is definitely like the winter time. It's not like in the fall whenever he died.
And they were also very clear to say in the announcement video, they didn't say this is a different Wolverine, which it seems like it is, but they were clear to say this is before. Like they talked about this takes place in 2020, whatever.
Kind of think they are giving us a different Wolverine timeline here, but I'll talk about that in just a little bit. So,
and real quick, one more thing. I forgot, they're also in not in this trailer, but in other trailers, you can also see the turned over truck from Logan in that same wood scene. So I think that's a good tease as well.
Yeah. I think you're right. Okay, cool. So I don't think that's much of a spoiler, because it probably happens early in the movie. Now, one thing we do get from this trailer is, we saw him recruited by the TVA. And of course, you can't trust Tom from Succession. It looks like now he's fighting the TVA. I think, and he says in this, that the people in his photo are threatened. It looks like something, and again, I don't want to get too far into theories on this. It looks like something in his timeline, something about the TVA is going to threaten his timeline, right? Like they're going to see his timeline as collateral damage. Don't want to speculate too much on why, but he's trying to save his timeline, and he thinks Wolverine can do that. I think the reason maybe he recruits Wolverine to help him is because, Deadpool's very meta. He sees, like in the comic books, he realizes he's a comic book character. And at one point in the comic book, Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. He goes on a killing spree so he can end his suffering as a long-suffering Marvel character. I think he knows that Wolverine is a franchise character, and that if he recruits Wolverine into his universe, then his universe will still be allowed to exist because they need him in the MCU.
Well, and as we've seen in Deadpool 1 and 2, Wolverine's the guy he looks up to. He's the hero that Deadpool looks up to. So yeah, it makes sense that he would go for Wolverine.
Yeah, and later in this trailer, he does say, "Oh, well, I've been looking for you for a long time." He wore the Hugh Jackman mask in the first movie, and in the second movie, it begins with like Logan on the snow globe. So we've definitely seen teases. So this is our next cool reveal shot. I mean, I see a Ferris wheel that could be the Eye of London. That could be a callback to Spider-Man Far From Home. What do you see in here, Colton?
Well, we've also got, if you jump forward a few more frames, I think we see the Asgard castle.
Oh yeah, no, it's right there on the right-hand side. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, that's interesting, because like now we're in the void at the end of time. And if you guys remember in the show Loki, every time the TVA would prune something, it would go to this void. So it could be like erased from space and time by the giant cloud dog we're going to talk about in just a second. So we're seeing these things from variant timelines that, for whatever reason, didn't quite make the cut in the main Marvel universe.
And it crossed my mind, in Loki, we see classic Loki do that illusion of the Asgard castle. So at first I was like, is it that? But that was an illusion. So, but anyway, I'm glad that they're showing like some Loki stuff in this trailer, because I think that once we see this movie, the Loki show is going to be like the closest connected like MCU property to it.
Yeah. I think they should be showing Loki on ABC every night of the week leading up to this, just to give it the maximum amount of viewers. But, you know, 100%. If you haven't seen Loki, we're going to do recaps and things like that next week. We have so much Deadpool stuff planned for you guys next week. You're going to love it. So this could also be a variant of Asgard Castle from like a reality where Loki won, you know, or where just anything went wrong, where Kid Loki killed Thor. In addition to pruning Kid Loki, they had to prune the whole castle. Let's just move on for a second here. We got another cool shot. So we're seeing shots of the birthday party. I don't want to talk too much about things that we saw in past trailers because we've already covered them so much. This is just like an overview. This is really cool. So this is neat. There's an interesting thing here where, trying to stop in the right frame. Behind Wolverine, of course, we saw a helicarrier, a shield helicarrier. And then it's hard to see in this frame, but behind Deadpool, there is another ship.
Yeah,
it's like an old sailing ship, right? So it's kind of interesting. We're seeing a future ship and a past ship. I'm not sure why. I mean, look, in the Marvel multiverse, there are realities that take place in ancient sailing times. Like there's the 1602 universe and What If. That ship could have been a remnant from that universe. Like after it was split apart, certain sections of it didn't stay there and they went there to the void.
And of course, we've seen the helicarrier in Deadpool before. In the first Deadpool, that big fight scene at the end of Deadpool is on a helicarrier.
That's right. But like a defunct helicarrier. That's very true. Okay, 20th Century Fox sign we've seen. This is a pure Deadpool meta moment. There's rumors. I don't get too far into rumors, but some of them we've seen confirmed that certain Fox era heroes are going to be showing up. There's actually a big Fantastic Four tease later in this that we're going to share with you guys. I'm curious to see how they take 20th Century Fox, the sign, and make that work inside the universe. Because, in the comics, when Deadpool talks to the fourth wall, people go, well, he's crazy. He's talking to himself. Do you have any theories on how they can justify this big ass sign being in the void?
Part of me thinks they're not going to really acknowledge it. It's just there. And if you get it, you get it. But I could totally see Deadpool making a comment about it. And I know we don't want to get too deep here, but I mean, in She-Hulk, Marvel Studios is a thing. So it's interesting to see maybe Kevin's doing something. He got rid of the 20th Century Fox logo. I don't know.
Yeah, very curious to see how they work that out. How they, like, especially if She-Hulk ends up in an Avengers movie when she interacts with other heroes, is she still going to break the fourth wall? Are they going to find some kind of justification for that? So in this scene, it looks like they're inside of the cavern that we saw in past trailers. This is like after they're taken by Cassandra Nova. And this is where, all the other trailers have been more focused on Wade. This one's focused on Logan. So he's telling him, like, I'm not worth anything in my universe. And then Deadpool walks him through this, like, sentimental nostalgia, flashback where he tells him, well, in my universe, you are. What is it you think? Well, maybe we should hold on this for later. But I know you do have a theory about this, about why this Logan says that he's poorly regarded in his own universe. So actually, there's a shot that's more related to that. We'll get to in just a second. Thank you, people on Twitter, for letting me know this is Vancouver, which is very cool for a few reasons. Vancouver is where they filmed the first X-Men movie. They went out of Los Angeles for the tax breaks, but also Ryan Reynolds is Canadian, Wolverine's Canadian, and depending on the creator, Deadpool's usually Canadian too. So it's very cool that like they've kept the Canadian roots
Canada
in there. It is interesting though, in that previous shot, right before the red and yellow Marvel Studios logo, then when we see Wolverine, he's got bullet holes in him. It looks like this is after the two of them are kidnapped by Cassandra Nova, because this is the same chamber where Cassandra Nova is mind torturing Logan later on, which again, we'll talk about the vision she shows him in just a second.
I think those bullet holes might be Deadpool's bullets from their
100%. Yeah, I hope so. I really, from this fight, right? Because he doesn't have them in that fight.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about this little nostalgia blast that we get here. I think it's interesting. So we see that shot of the Logan dog tag, and we see this shot from the movie Logan.
And that dog tag is from Logan as well. Yeah, when he's looking at it on his bed.
Yeah, and saying, the shot is from there. The dog tag, of course, originally appeared in the movie X-Men. This is from, I believe, X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yes.
And then there's another shot, X-Men Origins Wolverine. This is all X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yes, and then
Logan.
Well,
so,
and the
Wolverine was the train
Nagasaki.
shot. Yeah. why do we not get any X-Men in this? If he's talking about, well, in my universe, you were a big deal with the X-Men, how come we're not seeing that under the narration?
You know, maybe they're just sticking to the fact that this is a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Maybe they're like considering this almost like a fourth installment of that Wolverine trilogy. I would assume that there's no like legal reason that they couldn't show shots from the X-Men movies and only the Wolverine movies. I can't see a reason that would be. I think probably the reason that they're not showing any X-Men stuff and only stuff from the Wolverine films is because I think this movie is going to be, it's going to be funny, of course. It's a Deadpool movie, but I think it's really going to be like a character like study almost on the character of Wolverine. I think they're going to explore a lot about this character, and as much as Logan was a swan song for that character, I think this movie will kind of be like a retrospective on the character and this his different moments throughout history. I think this could really serve as like the final goodbye, like for a Hugh Jackman Wolverine.
I don't know. If you're bringing him back, you got to put him in the crossover movie.
Yeah, he's got to be in Secret Wars.
I want to throw out a slightly different theory here, because he and Deadpool have this conversation where he says, in my universe, you were like the X-Man. And he says, well, in my universe, I wasn't shit. They're two different universes. That confirms it, right? So we know that Deadpool takes place in a universe where the X-Men First Class people are basically like, because we saw them in Deadpool 2. So that apparently you would imagine also connects, because those movies set up the X-Men films that we've seen. In Logan, we hear them talk about the Statue of Liberty, and it's in a comic book, but Logan says it didn't happen anything like that. So I think, and you tell me I'm wrong here, I think the solo Wolverine movies they're now retconning and saying those are a different universe from the X-Men films. What do you think?
All three? Origins, the Wolverine, and Logan?
Baby. Yeah.
From the main X-Men universe?
Yes.
No,
think about it. They didn't line up very well. Like, and plus, no, oh man, I got it. You ready? Because, and you talk about this in the recap video we have coming out next week, basically X-Men Days of Future Past rewrote X-Men Origins Wolverine, because now Wolverine is taken in by Stryker in a different way. It's not, oh, I'm going to manipulate him into joining us like he did in X-Men Origins. So by definition, well, Origins is totally out, but everything else ties back to Origins, though. Like we see James Howlett. I think they might do that. I mean, we still have in Wolverine, we see the gene connection, right? We see the gene, but the Wolverine takes place in that same universe, which was then reset in Days of Future Past, which takes place after Wolverine.
You're exactly
I think that they're going to mix and match what's Wolverine, what isn't. And I think that in his Logan universe, because he says this thing later on that we'll talk about where he's like, oh, I wasn't really a joiner, basically. Maybe he never did join.
Yeah, I think you're spot on the fact that, because the Wolverine takes place after X-Men The Last Stand, and that's when Jean dies and he has nightmares about Jean. And then in the new future, in Days of Future Past, she's not dead. So you're exactly right that like Last Stand didn't happen the way we saw, so therefore the Wolverine wouldn't have happened. I still think that Logan takes place after the events of that new happy future in Days of Future Past. And it's kind of like Tony says in Endgame, you mess with time, it messes back. And like a new mutant apocalypse happened. So I kind of think that Deadpool takes place in that new Days of Future Past future. But Logan, the events of Logan are still part of that timeline. That would be my theory in the future.
I don't know. I don't see, because you know how they like bred mutants out of existence with corn syrup in Logan. I don't see that happening in the Deadpool universe. Again, though, okay, so this is all complicated, right? And this happens in the comics all the time, especially at DC. DC does like a massive event every 20 years where they just erase continuity like a whiteboard and start over. And these are interesting conversations to have. I do think that by the end of this movie, none of these conversations will matter, because the point's going to be that, well, these aren't the MCU universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And to your point about, I think a little later in the trailer, he mentioned, and we'll talk about it then, but he mentions the other X-Men and how he didn't want them to think that he wanted to be there. So to your point about him never joining, it sounds like this is a universe where that Wolverine from X-Men who thought the whole idea was stupid, that then went on to have a character journey, and like by X2 he's a full-fledged member of the team. It sounds like this Wolverine that Deadpool is having this movie with, he never joined the team here, never like embraced being a member of the team. He stayed in his same funk that we found him in that bar,
which by the way is not because the Wolverine in Days of Future Past and the happy ending had joined the X-Men. He was a professor and he was late for class and everybody knew who he was. So it sounds like the Deadpool movies have always been a separate timeline, you know, like a timeline where James McAvoy was Professor X even in the present day. Cool. Okay, so let's move on. I could go down timeline rabbit holes all day, man. All right. So then we get the shots from Logan. We see him dying. Again, this is him before that happens for whatever reason. So this is the part I think we were just talking about, right? Where he's talking about Storm and Cyclops, and he wasn't much of a joiner. And he talked about the suit there, and he said, Cyclops always wanted me to wear this. That's hilarious, right? Because of that line in X-Men 1.
What do you want? Yellow spandex? Yeah.
And now he finally gets it, and he looks awesome in it. Maybe it wouldn't have passed in 2000 when everybody was trying to look like the Matrix. So this shot's really interesting. This is Elias, who consumes all of space and time, going after the giant man in the void. So Elias, we know he goes through dead giant man, right? Paul Rudd finally aged. Yeah. Why is he what was Giant Man reaching for? Do you think it was like the Infinity Gauntlet and an end game? What's your theory on this?
No, I think, okay, so in Quantumania, we saw that all those different Ant-Mans going to get the orb or whatever, Kang's thing.
At the probability in the center of the probability drive, right?
And then as we learned in Loki, when you noodle, when you spaghettify, that's almost like you're being wiped. That's what happens when a universe dies. So theoretically, that's when you would be sent to the void. Well, in Quantumania, we saw that same energy essentially prune and noodle that giant man out of existence.
You're right.
And he was reaching for the orb. So that
is so cool.
He landed in the void.
All right, so Quantumania still matters, is what you're telling me. That's good, because as you guys know, and Disney is not paying me to say this, as you guys know, I actually really like Quantumania. Sure, it's not perfect, but it's better than... I've lived through it, guys. I lived through superhero movies in the 2000s. I have different standards from a lot of people. And then I like this shot here. This is Cassandra Nova literally living rent-free in Ant-Man's head.
Having a telepath in someone's head is perfect. Yes,
exactly. So Cassandra Nova in the comics, she is Professor Xavier. Well, she's kind of his sister. It's a very weird, complicated story, but she's essentially his twin sister. Oh my gosh, she's like a demon from another dimension who was like in the womb with them, and then he killed her in the womb, and she was like afterbirth in a sewer, and then like it's so weird. Grant Morrison can't just tell a normal story. Anyways, she is basically evil Professor Xavier, except I would say way more powerful because she's not really a mutant. And it looks like she's been pruned. Like she was not actually supposed to be in a universe, so she was pruned, but she's so dangerous that she's rallying the other pruned Fox mutants in this universe to do something. Again, I should note this, don't listen to leaks, right? I get mad when I see a leak. So if I'm surmising something, this isn't anything that I've heard or anything like that, except the only leaks I saw were the same ones everybody did, those photos that were released, the paparazzi photos. Now, this shot's interesting. In this shot, we see Elias swooping overhead, but Cassandra Nova was casually facing the other direction. Wolverine had his claws unsheathed, right? Like he's ready to fight. She doesn't care. And Elias completely ignores Ant-Man. What this is telling me is she's controlling Elias.
100%.
There's a shot. Yeah, there's a shot later on where we see her with the spaghettification thing, which to me seems like she's learned how to cause or create incursions. She's Goliath. This goes back to Loki and Quantumania, where Kang said, I weaponized Goliath and I won the multiversal war. Well, if you're not going to allow He Who Remains to win the multiversal war, and if the TVA's just going to police Kangs, they're not going to be watching a pruned artifact like Cassandra Nova in the TVA, who is able to take rise. Yeah, exactly. And I think, she probably won't be the big bad in Secret Wars, but this is demonstrating how when you take your eye off the ball, they're going to let other threats from this infinitely expanding multiverse that we saw at the end of Loki season 1.
And it makes perfect sense that she, a very powerful telepath, would be able to control Alioth, because we saw the Lokis enchant Alioth in the penultimate episode. Yeah.
Of season 1. You're right, 100%. I hadn't thought about that. So here we see a few things that, you know, were leaked, but we see them now. This is the cupcake truck from Moon Knight.
From Moon Knight. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the first time we've seen Moon Knight acknowledged. Again, I don't want to get too far into like some other stuff, but we also see here, you know, Toad. We saw Pyro in a previous trailer. Right. So we definitely
the best line in comic book movie history. What happens when when a toad gets hit with lightning? Same thing that happens to everything else. Yeah.
And do you know who wrote that line? Uncredited? Joss Whedon.
Oh, wow.
Joss Whedon, yeah. He actually was a script doctor on a lot of movies. Like he did Spider-Man 2 and a lot of movies in the 90s and 2000s.
Calling it now, purple lightning from Alioth hits Toad. In Deadpool,
oh my God.
The line.
Oh, that would be amazing. Oh, so that's still what happens, right? And we might even see Halle Berry in this. I don't know, like if they're going to be bringing in other Fox characters, hell, we might even see Daredevil, Ben Affleck, who knows? So one thing too to note here is that we're seeing this, everything's kind of cobbled together. It looks very Mad Max, I think on purpose. We even see these cages that look like mini Thunderdomes. It's cool to see how Cassandra Nova has been like, no, she's a genius. So she's able to pull all this different stuff together. And I don't think this is just a void where pruned Fox characters are. We could see an infinite number of MCU cameos in this. Any variant who was ever pruned could show up in this, and they could even have fun with it like they did in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and MCU version of Giant Man is there. So yeah, of course. The Void, I would think, is either huge or eternal. I mean, it's the end of time. So I would think that the Void is just like a never-ending space. And to your Mad Max point, you've got the motorcycle chariots, and it's
very Furiosa.
The Void, yes, the Void is very much a wasteland. That's exactly what the Void is. So I'm very excited that they're exploring it in this movie.
Right here, it's an interesting shot. There was a ramp. Then Cassandra Nova seems to telekinetically turn the ramp into stairs. It's a subtle way, I think, of being like, I'm not my brother. Like, I can walk. You know what I mean? I don't know. Why else would it be a ramp that they transform into stairs? Why not just keep it as a ramp? All right. So let's move on. This is the shot where, this is like earlier we saw Wolverine with the bullet holes in him. We see the shoulder pads are ripped off here. Any chance to show off Hugh Jackman's guns, and she's showing him a vision. I think here reminds me of like Kylo Ren and Poe Dameron in the first Force Awakens trailer.
Yeah.
So she's showing him a vision. That's a good look at her of this. Now, when we saw this in the original trailer, I thought this was literal because this is a panel taken straight out of the comic book Days of Future Past. Here, I just think it's symbolic of because he looks younger. I think this is showing him his failure of Xavier killing everybody at the school.
Yes, and. Isn't in those comics, you said it's tombstones of the X-Men, right?
Yes.
And we've got this wheat field, which wheat fields are, I think in the MCU have been shown to be like afterlife type stuff. Yeah.
No, sir. No, sir. No. I got you. Okay. It is a wheat field, and there was the field of reeds at the end of Moon Knight. What if, and this doesn't quite work, right? What actually killed the mutants in the Logan universe?
The corn syrup.
The corn syrup or gluten. And this is even better, right? If they manipulated gluten to have an enzyme to suppress the mutant gene, this is why he is in a field of wheat in front of these tombstones. And do you know what's even better about that? Do you remember the line? I think it was in Deadpool 1 where Ryan Reynolds says,
I was rounding up all the gluten in the world and launching into space where it can't not hurt us ever again.
Oh my God. You just solved everything. Yeah.
What if, and again, I've not read a single spoiler. What if this is a gag where it turns out that gluten did commit the mutant genocide and kill all the X-Men? I'm just saying. So this scene actually, and dude, I wish I would have done a reaction to this so you guys could have seen my first reaction. I teared up watching this. I'm not even joking. Like this genuinely moved me. Watching Deadpool kind of mourn his family with this, right? In Deadpool 2, the scene where he's talking to Vanessa and they play that like cover of Take On Me and stuff, those really got to me too. I didn't think a Deadpool movie could actually make me this sad.
I think the last movie, I'm not a big crier in movies. I think the last movie I cried in was Logan, But now that you mentioned Deadpool 2, I seem to recall getting a little choked up in the Take On Me part as well. So yeah, I think it's great the range that these movies have, and I'm not being facetious. The Deadpool movies have so much range.
They really do. I mean,
yeah.
the first was a romance.
Yeah.
I will. I'm going to throw this out there. I am a crier at movies. I can watch. I can go on like Fandango movie clips, and I can watch like the funeral at the end of Wrath of Khan, and it gets me every damn time. Like every single time. So, but since we're not going to watch me cry now, there's a few Easter eggs in this shot. Low-hanging fruit Easter eggs. We see the cupcake truck from earlier. We see the Red Skull's car, which I think you could spot in a different trailer. This is not only the Golden Gate Bridge, but Colton, tell the people which Golden Gate Bridge this is.
It's the Golden Gate Bridge from X-Men Last Stand that Magneto uses as he levitates it over to that island.
Because you can see it in different pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, he's extra. Magneto's just an extra guy. Yeah. And then above the bridge, we can also see what looks like, and you can see it on the left side of the screen as well, things falling into the void from like some type of crack in the sky, almost kind of like what we saw in No Way Home. There's like these portals of just the various things falling into this trash heap that is the void.
And if Cassandra Nova is able to control incursions, I wonder if she's also to control what comes into the void. Maybe that could have been her goal all along. Yeah. All right. There's also a great thing here, right? Ooh. So right there, you guys saw that. That was some sort of hover vehicle. That hover vehicle to me looked like a Fantastic car. We don't ever see them in the movies, I don't think. I haven't watched a Fantastic Four movie in a really long time.
We did in Silver Surfer. They have.
We did in Silver Surfer. You're right. And that was my favorite one of those movies too. So that's the Fantastic Car, which I really want to see those characters, right? Because they never really got a swan song or anything like that. Like Michael Chiklis. I am curious if Steve Rogers is going to show up, if Chris Evans is going to show up as the Human Torch. And again, not read a single leak. I kind of thought he'd be there in Secret Wars. Maybe this movie is going to end up being like, maybe what we thought was Secret Wars, Battle World, all that stuff is actually going to end up just being in this.
Yes.
With all these different variants.
And Deadpool is the better place to do it. An Avengers movie, I don't think is the place to have like some of the more goofy type cameos. Deadpool is the place to have the fun and put in like those Fantastic Four and stuff. Yeah.
Hey, and speaking of goofy cameos, what about this cat right here? Tyler Mane Sabretooth. I wish they hadn't spoiled him in the trailer, but he leaked already in those first like paparazzi photos.
Yeah, he did.
Which, by the way, we're not showing any paparazzi photos because we'll get demonetized. Not that we, support those anyways. Yeah, Tyler Mane. So like, this is another thing that makes me go, well, that's not the same one from the Wolverine solo movies, right? That's not Liev Schreiber. It was always kind of two different universes, the Wolverine movies and the X-Men movies. So that's starting to really feel like it could be true.
I hope Schreiber's in there too. I love him. I hope his Sabretooth shows up at some point in the movie.
He's an amazing actor. And he was good in that role. It's just that's a weird movie, man. A lot of great talent really bringing it. And then they still make that movie. All right. So here we've got more talking. We kind of covered all this. We see Cassandra Nova controlling spaghettification. Notice that her straps on her outfit make a dress, which is make an X, which is pretty cool.
And I gotta say, I love the consistency there. They're showing the spaghetti noodles, the exact same stuff we're seeing in Loki. I feel like the MCU recently has had an issue where it seems like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. I'm glad that we're seeing some consistency, even in something as simple as the visual effects. Like they're communicating. The different shows and movies know what the other is doing, it seems.
Yeah, and 100%, that's what I've heard too. A lot of people are siloed. A lot of like projects are siloed.
Yeah.
So let's move on and look at the absolute big reveal from this that we all knew was coming, but for some reason Daphne Keane denied it. Here he is in the woods talking to Laura, who it's weird to see her grown up. I know we just saw her in The Acolyte, but she was covered in makeup. I expect her to look like a 10-year-old, and now she's like a young lady. But here she is, and she really sums up Wolverine here.
You were always the wrong guy. Till you weren't.
It's hard to sum him up better than that. I mean, we've been working on a lot of Wolverine stuff, and it always kind of comes back to he never believes he's a hero. He believes that he is a villain who is trying to make amends and become a hero. I think this movie's distilling his essence really well. What do you think about this cameo?
I am so glad. I'll say I never believed Andrew Garfield when he said he wasn't the werewolf, wasn't in No Way Home. Daphne Keane, she got me. She at a Acolyte premiere, she said that she wasn't in it. She would have loved to have been. I believed her. So when I saw her pop up in this trailer, very excited. She's brilliant in Logan. Such a little talented actress in that film, and she's grown into such a talented actress. I loved Jackie in The Acolyte, and I loved here that she is saying, she's basically echoing the fact that, remember in Logan, he wanted nothing to do with her at first. He did not want to be the hero. He did not want to save her, none of that. And he got pulled into it, which is exactly what's happening in this movie too.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much she's going to be in it. You know, I don't think she's like a Vision because she's older and stuff. But if they're going to be recruiting people from these movies to help them, or maybe he's allowed to see what becomes of them, because maybe, you know, I don't see how that's going to jive with Logan, though. I think there's going to be another memory wipe or something if this is the same Logan.
I have a theory. Go. If this is the same Laura from Logan, which I think it is, and it's in the future. And I personally think that Logan, I know we might disagree on this. I personally think that the Logan universe is in the future of the same Deadpool timeline. I think those are the same timeline. So if Deadpool's universe is dying, as he says, like, my world's about to end, I need you to help me save it. Perhaps she is living in this future where they are witnessing their timeline begin to crumble, and she's in that future. So maybe Wolverine seeing his daughter, like, this is another chance for him to save his daughter. So maybe that helps convince him to, okay, I got to help this Deadpool guy save his world.
Again, when we get this close, like I see the movie in 3 days, I'm trying to I can't even formulate theories. I'm just too excited. So then we get another money shot here in a second. Right there, that's Lady Deadpool. Lady Deadpool, who you know, had her own comic book. Really, there was a run called Deadpool Kills Deadpool, where basically Deadpool variants from different multiverses went to war against each other for reasons. We'll talk about that like in our Easter egg video. Here we see like an army of Deadpools behind her. And notice, Colton, they're making a portal. Someone's doing a sling green kind of thing to get them in there. And in a previous trailer, we saw Deadpool and Wolverine hop through one of these portals too.
Yes, I think those Deadpool variants are coming from the Void, and they're here to help.
Yeah. And you can see, you know, there's a cowboy Deadpool in there. In a second, we see Dogpool. Dogpool, incredibly depressing death in one of the comics. It's not a spoiler for the comics, but
they better not kill that dog.
I don't think they will in this, but boy, they sure did kill him in one of the comics. So yeah, and then we get we've seen this since the first trailer or second trailer. Lee Field's just feet, because Rob Liefeld, who co-created Deadpool, couldn't draw feet or anything else to save his life. Yeah. And then we just get this tag where Deadpool is thwipping like Spider-Man. So that's the trailer. Guys, we're really excited for this movie, but let us know what you thought of the trailer and your Deadpool theories down in the comments below. Once again, thanks to Colton Ogburn for joining us. And if you have any thoughts, let us know in the comments or add us on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.